On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Dr. Joe Gothard to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Dr. Gothard went from alumni and standout athlete to dedicated educator at Madison LaFollette High School. He would be lured to Minnesota as superintendent in 2020 after leading the St. Paul School District through the challenges of a teacher strike, the COVID-19 shutdown, the death of George Floyd, and the death of a school board member to COVID-19. Dr. Gothard will return in 2024 to lead the Madison Metropolitan School District as superintendent. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are, whatever you are doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast and get access to previous episodes on Facebook at Survive and Thrive 8791, the podcast. Don't forget to hit that follow button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard, if there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to share their story. Email me at tdecor@gmail.com. Glad you could join us. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. I've got a conference reminder here before I introduce our esteemed guest. I'd like to highlight the upcoming Survive and Thrive 8791 Mental Health and Recovery Conference taking place in Madison, Wisconsin. Join us on Wednesday and Thursday, October 29th and 30th at the Ho-Chunk Nation Madison branch office located on the southeast side of Madison. This powerful two-day event will feature several speakers who will share their stories through mental health and addiction challenges and how they've learned to survive and thrive. You can register for the conference at our website. If you're a business or an advocate of mental health and recovery, we invite you to partner with us through sponsorship opportunities. Our website is surviveandthrive8791.com. This is our guest and episode intro. According to an AI artificial intelligence overview, less than 5% of school superintendents in the United States are Black. A recent survey of superintendents in 2024 and 25 academic year indicated that Black superintendents represent less than 5% of the total, while the vast majority, 86.9%, were white, according to the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education. Today's guest is in that less than 5%. Today I welcome Dr. Joe Gothard to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Joe grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, attended LaFollette High School, and is a proud LaFollette Lancer. After high school, Joe would take his talents to the University of Wisconsin-LaCrosse to play football. Since school was hard, he would return to Madison. A job in the Madison Public School District would allow him to get his feet wet in the education world. A mentor of his, Dr. Mike Meissen, then the principal at Madison LaFollette, suggested Joe get his teaching degree. So Joe would earn his undergrad, master's, and doctorate degrees from Edgewood University, formerly known as Edgewood College. Today, I'm so glad you could join us, Dr. Joe Gothard. What is up? How's the summer been, Dr. Gothard?
Summer's been great. You know, my wife was able to join me kind of halfway through last summer, so this is really our first summer being back, and we spent some time doing things we used to love that we haven't done for a while. We spent a day at Devil's Lake and have gotten to a couple Brewer games and just truly enjoying Madison in the summer, which is a whole experience in and of itself, and spending some little bit of time with our kids who remain in the Twin Cities, and it's been a great summer.
Yeah, explain that. Once you took the job in May of 2024, and then you had to relocate, were you living out of an apartment for a while, or you staying with some friends, or how'd that sail your house up there before you came down here? How'd that all work out for you?
Yeah, we had a great rental unit right here in downtown Madison near my office, obviously close to all of our schools, being in the center of the city. And the housing market was, I'm grateful of the housing market at the time in the Twin Cities. It did not take long for us to sell.
Being a superintendent and maybe you can paint the picture for the listeners a little bit and those people that are in education. Are superintendents on 24/7, 365, especially when you get the number of schools you'd have? It's not just you don't have just one school, you've got multiple schools. Are you on 365, 24/7?
I think the superintendency, depending on the size and the structure of the district, can vary greatly. And in a large district like Madison, like St. Paul, there are so many systems in place that each need constant supervision and monitoring. And a lot of the potential problems or actual problems, of course, are going to land on my desk, and I'm going to have knowledge of them. But there are so many other systems that are related to one another to deal with them. I'll give an example. Say we have a bus that gets in an accident with children on it. No one's hurt, but it's going to disrupt, the time that students are able to get either home or get to school. And in a large system, you've got safety and security, you've got alternative transportation, you've got school already being notified, and those are the kinds of systems that are in place. So even though that might land on my desk, or I might have notice of it, there are already things taking place to handle that. And I think that's the leader's job. That's really my responsibility, or the superintendent's responsibility, to make sure that the systems are in place, because one person can't be responsible for everything.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you would have people in place to handle some of those things. And I like the fact that you don't necessarily have a thumb on it, but it comes across your desk, hey, this happened this morning, somebody briefing you on it, and that's a great system. Yeah, like I said yesterday in our little brief photo shoot, and we had a chance to kind of formally meet. I've known your history, some with, probably more with the football coaching. Back when we used to read papers, you were turning some heads at Madison LaFollette, and I'm not going to get too deep into that because I will let you talk about that, and you'll share with our listeners, but your climb from where you started compared to where you are right now is inspiring, and then really everything in between that has allowed you the experiences and the skill set to be able to step into that big chair over on Dayton Street in Madison here at the MMSD. They hired the right man, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do with the district. And with that being said, another school year is just around the corner. You can hear my enthusiasm for that. Your second year as the head man for MMSD. How was year one? Any highlights, successes?
Yeah, well, it's, again, what things that we've accomplished this year, the referendum was huge. And to have this community say, yes, we're going to support you with $500 million to rebuild or renovate 10 schools. I mean, we're building brand new campuses to buildings that are, 60, 65, 70 years old. And it's going to bring some real excitement to our communities. And I'm also so excited about that.
Did you take any vacation this summer? Any chance to kind of unplug and unwind?
I get up extraordinarily early in the morning, so I have an early start most every day. So it's not difficult for me to be tired at night. So I try to, get home from work and spend as much time as I can, being present, here with Mary. Enjoy a good meal is always a good way to unwind.
Before we get to the rest of your story, I need to talk about our sponsor here. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's Restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Joe, do you cook?
Oh, I love to cook.
All right. What's your genre? What's your style? What's your cuisine?
Yeah, well, it's gone from grill and barbecue and smoking, because that just takes a lot of time to being health conscious now. I have really dug into more of a Mediterranean style diet. I love cooking seafood. Wouldn't call myself a vegetarian, but definitely favor more vegetables and different ways you can cook and prepare a healthy eating lifestyle.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. Watching the wait as we get a little bit older, with their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere. People keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Wanakee, and Mount Horeb. Most communities in the Dane County area, which encompasses Madison and the surrounding metropolitan area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to a little drum roll here. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
I have not been to Buck and Honey's.
You have not been to Buck and Honey's. Well, we are going to have to grab some pizza or whatever your heart desires. My treat at one of the locations, probably the closest location to you would be out in Monona. So we get there by car. We can certainly get there by foot or horseback, or we can get there by boat. So
let's make sure we do that.
Let's make sure we do that before you get into the grind of the school year. On the podcast, our guests will follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like, so we get into Dr. Gothard's history, what happened to get Dr. Gothard on the podcast. And in segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and get into what it's like now. And we discuss Dr. Gothard's 5 suggestions for thriving. Segment 1, what was it like before and what happened? You were raised in Madison, Wisconsin on the east side, and I'm proud to say that I'm an east sider myself now. What was life like growing up on the east side of Madison?
I was, I grew up right around the corner from Elvium Elementary School. So my earliest, memories are that, I had a field and ball field and skating rink in the winter, a school woods, and a school. So it was just part of my extended, house was, everything that we did and as kids playing, at school. And, I think that then led to what I have come to now appreciate from then is just how tight that community was. It's been it's been so incredible to walk back and walk that block that I grew up on. And I can still to this day point to every house and name the parents and the kids that live there. Now, some of them are the same, believe it or not, 40, 45 years later. But I can still remember, the different families that live there. And what I remember about growing up is that we knew each other. We were connected. We couldn't text, but we could certainly call on the phone or actually knock on a door and say hello. And I think that those kinds of values have kind of found their way back to who I am as a leader in person today. Taking the time to get to know people, know their families, know their story, like you're asking me today, I think it's an important, not just leadership quality in being a superintendent. I think to being engaged and a present member of a community, it's vitally important as well.
Dad, you bring up a great point of back in those days, there's no cell phone. You probably got chased off hang up that darn phone and I'm going to go outside and play. And the only way you find out if nobody's out there and you're the first one, you're going next door and pounding on the door and say, hey, can Jeffrey come out, or can Mike come out, or is Carol there? And all of a sudden some parents screaming, hey, Joe's here again. And out you go and you're out playing until, the whistle blows at noon and everybody goes in and grabs their bologna sandwiches and then you play until that street light comes on and you're back in and then repeat the next day. And it's just some good times. Tell us about your family growing up. You talked about your neighbors and such, but tell us about mom and dad and 5 siblings. That's a big family.
Yeah. Mom and dad were both raised in Madison, both graduated in the 50s, dad from Central High School and mom from Edgewood High School. My dad's black and my mom's white. They had good friends in high school that introduced them, and they got married shortly after high school and began having children. 4 of my siblings are older, one after the other, 4 in a row, and then 10 years, and then myself, 5th in order, and then a younger brother. So 6 of us total. And by the time they moved to they lived in South Madison until my older siblings got a little bit older, and before I was born, they moved to the Far East Side. And I think growing up for me, it was, there were some difficult times. My dad wasn't real present at that stage of our family, working a lot and spending a lot of time away from home, whether it be with his friends or softball or whatever it was that he was doing. And my parents eventually would divorce when I was in 3rd grade, so 9 years old. And, I remember the day that the trunk to the car shut and he moved out. So not only was it somewhat of an absent father, but it was also an absent racial identity. I knew that I was different, though I don't know that I acknowledged it. But as I look at it now, the conversations even that I have with my own children or school children that I work with, something that I always just realized was absent from a lot of my early childhood, until I got to middle school and had an amazing teacher. But so family-wise, that was it. It was my incredible mother who, when we got a little bit older, she opened up her house and started taking care of kids, kind of a home daycare, and being right around the corner from school. We had a lot of families who really looked at my mom as a centerpiece of their family as well, taking care of their kids. So kids is part of who I've been my entire life, whether it was my siblings or family or the children that my mom brought into our house. Growing up, I didn't know that I wanted for much. For me, it was sports. I wanted to be out and be active with my friends. And, Tim, you and I, as you were talking earlier about, how things were, back then, things weren't organized. We didn't have AAU teams or tournaments or showcases. We didn't travel. If we traveled, we were on our bike and we were going to the neighborhood diamond in someone else's, in someone else's community. That was a big deal to meet at someone's house and ride together to go play the rivals from the other school. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And something that today you might experience this too. We drive around the city and you see empty sandlots. You see baskets that don't have balls being dribbled on the pavement outside of them. And it really has changed. And, I'm not here to say it's better or it's worse. It's just different. And I'm so thankful that I had those opportunities as a kid to just kind of work things out as a group of kids that, we weren't out earning trophies. We were out building teamwork and camaraderie and doing positive things together for the most part, doing positive things together, around sports and around things that were healthy and fun.
Yeah, you had me thinking back to the simpler times of when you talked about you see sandlots and courts that there's nobody playing. And then when you said the courts, all I could hear was a ball going through a basket and a chain net. Kind of rattling back and forth, and that brought back some amazing memories. You have an amazing wife, Mary, of almost 31 years and 3 equally amazing children. Spin some yarns about them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I go to UW-LaCrosse as a 17-year-old freshman. After I graduated, I left the day after graduation, high school graduation at LaFollette in June of '89. And I took 6 credits. My grades were such that I had to earn my way into UW-LaCrosse and to play on the football team. Sadly, I'd had a pretty bad knee injury my senior year of basketball, so I had surgery and never really fully recovered. And played football, but was kind of injured the entire time. And when that wasn't going so well, of course, school kind of followed, and I really lost interest. Now, to go back in time even a little bit more, though, my dad got sick and passed away a week before the start of my senior year. It was during football two-a-days practices that Dad got ill and then passed away. And so I think back to the year of '88, '89, it really is a blur still. And I can say unequivocally, without a doubt, that sometime in June of '89, I am this freshman kid at UW-LaCrosse, of course, training for football. I needed to fill my tummy. I was an undersized lineman at the time, if you could believe that, at 260 pounds and trying to get up to 275. So I had to eat. And I saw this young lady who was working at the cafeteria every day and struck up a conversation with her. And here 36 years later, I should say, we've been married 31 years and have 3 great kids. And Mary's never left my side. She attended UW-LaCrosse and graduated from there and was on the track team for a bit. A 3-sport athlete in high school. Could brag about her. She's in her high school Hall of Fame. Won a state championship in the 4x1 in high school. It's really been quite a journey with her, and I just cannot thank her enough for just the incredible support. Days that I didn't believe in myself, I always had her to tell me otherwise. And she didn't have to say it. She could show it, the way she raises our kids, the hard work that she's put into her career as a public health educator for more than 30 years. And she's just incredible. 3 kids, 28, 25, 22, all 3 living in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. My girls, Gabby and Grace, both work for Target Corporation in different areas.
It's a good brand. That's a good brand.
In Minneapolis. And our son, Gavin, is a special education assistant. He was in a district outside of St. Paul. He's moving back to Madison. He's going to continue that work here in Madison.
He knows a guy.
He knows a guy that has very high expectations. But what I'm most hopeful about is that he sees and understands my story. My kids have seen literally what I've had to do to prepare myself for opportunities like the ones that I've earned. And if I do anything as a parent, I really hope it's leaving them kind of a recipe for choices you can make that can prepare you for the future.
That's good stuff. You graduated from Madison LaFollette High School. So yeah, we're going to go back just a little bit, and you're a proud Lancer. What were some of your favorite memories from high school?
I think just that core group of friends. And some of us have distance today, which happens naturally. But I can remember some of my best memories of growing up was just being together. And again, didn't have the distractions, that we do today. So present conversations, hanging out, going to a park, playing ball. That was so much of it. At school, I think it was, sports. And if it wasn't the teams I was on, it was supporting other teams, school spirit, that kind of thing. And just, again, being part of the community. I'm grateful that I have a few close friends from high school that, again, today we could pick up the phone anytime and reach out to one another, whether we're in the same state or not. But, they're really important people in my life. And it's been fun to watch them, raise their families and do their thing and find their career paths and help them through some of their struggles and challenges like they've helped me over the years as well. So I think, again, being a proud East Sider at LaFollette, I think that sense of community, that sense of being there for one another, I just can't say enough how important that is, and something that I work hard at each and every day to give back to people around me.
Yeah, I kind of envision, because I've never really picked the brain of anybody that's gone to a big school, and I know a lot of people that have gone to big schools, but here you're telling us that a big school like Madison LaFollette, probably 1,500 to 2,000 kids back in the day, there's family there and there's a community there, and I didn't always think that maybe that existed with those, a large number of students, but you're telling us otherwise. That's so cool to hear. Though you struggled in college academically, you would come back to Madison and you kind of got into some coaching and maybe a little bit of assisting in the classroom. Dr. Meissen, Mike Meissen, who was the principal at the time at LaFollette, saw something in you. What was it that he saw? Because he's got a great eye for talent, unless he just hit the jackpot with you. But I don't think that's probably the case. What did he see in you that kind of got the ball rolling educationally for you?
There's a number of us part of the Dr. Mike Meissen tree, so I'm proud to be part of it. And and let me clarify one thing. I struggled in college the first time. Once I got my act together, I think I did quite well for myself. But
yes, you did.
that first time was really hard. And I think what Dr. Meissen saw in me, first of all, I should tell everyone that he is a 1977 LaFollette graduate. He graduated with one of my older brothers. They were very close friends. And actually, the Meissen family, all educators, grew up right down the street from us. So he, being 12 years older than me, of course, we weren't peers when I was growing up, but I always knew Mike. Always knew that he was a friend of our family. And kind of back to my theme of we look out for each other on the East Side. That's what Dr. Meissen did for me. He didn't do anything for me other than make sure my eyes were clear about opportunities that I had. He didn't open doors for me. He showed me where the doors were. And I think motivated me to work really hard. And through our relationship, he got it to a point where, again, he didn't do anything for me, but he set high expectations. And he helped me make sure that I wasn't going to fail reaching and even exceeding them. And, what more can you ask for from a mentor, from a teacher, from a coach? I think he's been all three. And just can't thank him enough for the opportunities that he, helped me seek and helped to make sure that I got to that right door to make some really good decisions to give back to the MMSD and obviously eventually the LaFollette community.
You would get a teaching degree in biology and a minor in secondary education from Edgewood University. Dr. Meissen would be there kind of again and hire you back to your alma mater as a teacher and coach. What did you like about the classroom and the field?
Yeah, there's some irony there. I started as a Phi Ed major at LaCrosse, but at the time, in the 80s, 90s, you couldn't get a Phi Ed job. And the irony is today, it's one of the shortage areas of physical education teachers. So it's interesting how things have changed. But when I started thinking about getting a job and what did I really love about school, it was really easy. My best class in high school was biology. And it was my best class because I had the best teacher, Roger Hugick, the late Roger Hugick, sadly, who passed away of cancer not long after he retired, was an incredible person. And though he, I'm sure, taught some incredible biology lectures and lessons, I remember the human element and the relationship builder that he was so much more. And here's a group of East Side kids coming into H6 at LaFollette, and he treated each of us like we were the most important person in that, not only in that classroom, in that school. And it was authentic. It was not for show. So it easily became something for me. I look forward to going to that class each day. I look forward to listening to his stories, his lectures, and his work with me. And that's what I ended up teaching. Coaching for me, I started working at MSCR and volunteering at the East Y. And then I started coaching a youth football program called East Side Sharks. And for me, it just came natural. The relationship with kids, helping them understand how to be a good teammate, how to be responsible. The football, the technical stuff, I had to learn. Of course, I played most of my life, but coaching and making sure that you're preparing to be the best coach and setting your team up is a whole different thing. And just had opportunities to continue to grow. LaFollette High School, Eric Nelson hired me to coach basketball there as well. So I was coaching football and basketball before I became the head coach. And, just the timing of it too, Tim, I can't forget this as I, just spent the second of two consecutive springs being at the Madison Sports Hall of Fame, where two of our former players were inducted, and Nathan Brown and Jonte Flowers. I mean, I got to, Coach Nelson and I both, and Mike Brown, the track coach. I mean, it was just an incredible time for us. When I look at the student athletes that we were so fortunate to have in our school and on our teams, success wasn't guaranteed, but there was sure a great foundation of success just based on the incredible human beings that those young men and women were that were in the programs at that time. 3 sport athletes, honor roll students, parents who really supported and backed and, really gave the trust to the school, to the coaches, to do great things and great work with their kids. And it was really a great time, from that, I'd say 98 to really 2010. That whole era was just incredible at LaFollette.
Yeah, you just brought up a good point that I kind of forgot about, but you and Coach Nelson and whoever was on that staff, just review for me quick. Was it 02 or 03 that the LaFollette Lancers were the not Class A, but the Division I state champions? When I say that, what does that do for you?
Well, first of all, hearing you say Class A, a little bit of throwback. I like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
I know what you mean. 2003, I wasn't, because I was head football coach. I had stepped away, but Eric and I, grew up together. We were East Y kids, the Nelson family. So, of course, I was always right by his side and supervising games. And though I wasn't a crowd, I was definitely his, a coach, symbolic coach. Again, we were experiencing great success in football and then watching that transition to the basketball court. I think 10 of our kids might have been on that state championship team from the football team, something that's unheard of today. And then let's not forget, Coach Brown won a state championship in track as well that spring. So like I said, kind of a once in a lifetime through line to just have so many great student athletes and coaches who didn't just coach together, they were friends, deeply committed to one another, learning from each other, coordinating calendars and schedules to make sure that there weren't, some of the conflicts, unfortunately, that we see today with so much competition and, access. I know it's changed a lot as well, just in terms of student contact time. But it was, a great time. And let me not forget that Dr. Meissen also had some really high expectations. I remember early on in my career, Mike had a whole strategic plan for a school for athletics, not like codified bylaws or anything like that. But if you coached or you were the AD at LaFollette, there were expectations for how to build a successful athletic program. You really believed in it. And I think it helped to create a culture at the school that was really a healthy one.
It's so good to hear that. There's a lot of schools that will say we're an academic school, or I don't know that there are too many that will say that we're just an athletic factory. But I think the two have to coexist. And when I say athletics, I'm really talking about co-curricular activities, because it's
right.
That's the arts and the band and the forensics right. and everything. I think. I had an opportunity to work in a school like that, and I think it's when one helps the other, and when you get both, that really brings that. You talk about family and community. Mm-hmm. Everybody kind of gets behind the school district. Because our listeners want to hear the rest of your story, I need to talk about our sponsor one more time. Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning. With 4 locations in the Madison area, one is always near. People ask why Buck and Honey's. Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. In 2003, Dr. Joe Gothard would start his climb from Dean of Students at his alma mater, Madison LaFollette, to being named the Superintendent of the Madison Metropolitan School District, MMSD, in May of 2024. Dr. Gothard is going to talk about a 90-day stretch in that same role as superintendent in the St. Paul School District that would challenge him. And he's going to bring back some historic things about that time in St. Paul and Minneapolis. Please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. The podcast is where we feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Dr. Joe Gothard is here today to share his incredible story about his climb from the classroom to the big chair of the Madison Metropolitan School District. He is the superintendent of MMSD, and he will share how he has survived and thrived. In 2003, you would leave the classroom to start your career in administrative work. Since the show has a mental health component to it, This is kind of what I got from some of the information you sent me. You mentioned how to deal with the word no when you didn't get the job or the promotion you wanted. During those times, hearing the word no, and that can have some negative connotation to it. It can be depressing and cause anxiety, anything. How would you cope when you heard that? Tell our listeners.
Listen, I was on the fast track. So that 2003 flurry came again, Dr. Meissen pretty much pulling me out of the classroom saying, look, I see how you're building a football program and building a community, getting people involved. We need that work in our school as well. So he planted that seed in me. I'd started my master's degree at Edgewood College then, Edgewood University now. So I was on the principal pathway, but wasn't quite there yet. Well, as I look back now, and I have certainly been recognized, have received awards and notoriety in that way, I think few people take time to realize how many setbacks there have been on that pathway. There have been jobs and promotions that I've applied for that I haven't gotten. Some of them are known, some of them aren't at all. Share with you that many people know in 2012 I applied to be the superintendent in Madison and was not chosen. Others I've applied for confidential superintendent searches around the country and that haven't gone my way. And what I've learned is this: there are two really distinct paths you can go down when you hear the word no, really about any decision. But in this case, it would be a promotion in the educational landscape. The first is that you can become bitter, angry, mad. You can look for ways to lash out at the hiring authorities or the group or the organization or the person you think didn't support you. And you can self-destruct in that way as well. Throw people under the bus. The other way is that you can come to grips with who you are as a leader, what you can control about your own growth, and look for ways to improve. Look for opportunities to perhaps shore up an area that you weren't as strong in, that maybe the organization was looking in. You can do what a coach would do. You can rewind the tape and look for flaws in your game that you can improve. Everything that we do as people, we have the opportunity to get better. I believe in that. And I think those who are seeking promotion or seeking new opportunities who don't recognize that can really create some self-imposed setbacks and many times perhaps ostracize yourself from the people around who might sponsor your growth or who might provide you opportunities. So for me, it's always been just that studying self and being very much self-aware and making sure that at the end of the day that relationships are important to success. And you certainly don't want to create a situation where people are sharing anything negatively about you as a person based on the way that you've handled a situation or been delivered news that maybe you didn't want to hear.
Who did you lean on for support? Family, coworkers that you had to go back to, friends? Who was there to kind of help you pick up the pieces during those times?
Yeah, friends for sure. I mean, in 2000, so I was the Toki Middle School principal in the 05-06, 06-07 school year. And at that time, Dr. Meissen left LaFollette. He became a superintendent in the state of Illinois. And I was at Toki Middle School for a year. And everybody and their brother knew, oh my gosh, Joe's going to come back to LaFollette. It was like a match made in heaven. And of course, I applied and interviewed for the position. And the superintendent chose an out-of-state principal. So I did not get the job after that first year. So I was told no about my dream job at the time. And again, sharing what I just shared with you, I applied it there. I wasn't about to, create any kind of animosity between me and my supervisors. I had an important job to do at Toki, and I was committed to that. Well, that candidate didn't work out. He was on the job for just a short time and removed, and the job reopened that second year, and I applied and I got the job. So it just goes to show you that had I chosen that other route, or self-destruction, I wouldn't have been in a position to ultimately, get the job at LaFollette. And I'd say that, my friends around me, people who were really advocating for me to get LaFollette, they didn't leave my side, but they also saw a very humble, vulnerable, and hardworking friend and colleague handle myself during that situation. And I'll share with you that the superintendent, Art Rainwater, at the time, remains a great mentor of mine. I never harbored any ill will towards him. I just didn't. I took his no to me as a challenge to get better, and not to prove to him or anyone else that I could do the job, to prove to myself that I had room to improve as a leader.
Like most educators, and you've already shared a number of things, and you have stories that could probably fill reams of books and paper, and I hope someday that you're able to, and maybe you have, I guess I don't know, Joe, but maybe you have a book in the works, because what you have, we need more people like you in the education field, and being able to handle some things and how you handle them. And we're going to talk about something here that brought back some vivid memories for myself and what was going on during the times. But there was a 90-day stretch in 2020 that would challenge you as probably your mental capacity, physical, emotional well-being, and certainly challenge you as a superintendent in the St. Paul School District. And I think there were 4 things as I'm looking at my notes. I'm going to let you go ahead and talk your way through it, and throw up the flag if you need a reminder. But I'm just going to sit back and listen, because that's kind of what I did a little bit yesterday. Is this was riveting stuff. So tell us what happened during essentially that COVID time, 2020.
Yeah, thank you. St. Paul Public Schools, just to give everybody a little bit of familiarity, I guess I'm a capital city kid, capital Minnesota, 33,000 students, 70 campuses, incredibly diverse school district, linguistically, racially, socioeconomically, in a great city. And I'm going to skip to 2020, but just to share that it was a very challenging assignment. I'd been in Burnsville and Savage School District of about 10,000 in Minnesota for 4 years when I got the St. Paul Public Schools job. And it was a learning experience, to say the least. Again, being in a district that size, one of the large urban districts in the country, with my experiences, but I had, so many challenges that I faced on a daily basis. To just skip to 2020 seems a little bit unfair. But let's jump into what was taking place through the winter of 2019 and then 20. Collective bargaining is still legal in the state of Minnesota, and I think that's a good thing. St. Paul Public Schools has 27 different bargaining units, and the largest are the teachers. And this was my second time being at the negotiations table with the teachers in 2019-20, and things weren't going good. There were proposals on the table, and there were costs associated with those proposals that had a difference of more than $100 million. And I'm sitting there and I know exactly what our budget would allow for an investment, that I could take to the Board of Education. And I knew that things were not tracking in a positive way. So the escalation continued by the teachers and ended up being a vote for authorization to strike in February. And we went around the clock negotiating in mediated service, or in mediation, contract mediation, and spent hours, and I mean hours, 18, 20 hours sometimes of negotiating, to the point where once the strike authorization date was met, the teachers went on strike. By far the lowest point in my life. Tim, I can remember it to this day. It was about 2 a.m, at a building I wasn't familiar with, the Bureau of Mediation Services. I know that sounds really exciting. And I remember the sound of their footsteps as the group of teachers negotiating walked out and a strike commenced. And I just had, it's just such a helpless feeling because obviously people want to put the message out to families, I'm sorry, but our schools aren't open tomorrow. It's about the worst thing you could ever do. You think it's hard on a snow day to make that call. It's something I hope nobody has to experience. So we spent 5 days that week on strike, and it was actually Governor Tim Walz who contacted our office and said, you need to get in here. You need to get this strike settled. And he brought us back together. He met with us. He didn't get involved in the negotiations, but he definitely set the tone that we had to get that strike settled. And what he said next, is historic forever. He said something to this effect: we've got this pandemic coming, and I have no idea what it's going to mean for Minnesota schools. So we got the strike settled on March 9th. Again, round the clock negotiating to finally get to a place where we could shake hands and sign a tentative agreement on a contract. And that was a Friday at, I think 10 o'clock, we did a press conference. By Saturday and Sunday, we were meeting with our state superintendent leader and the governor again to tell us that he was closing schools because of the pandemic. So we go from a teacher strike, students weren't in school, to hearing the schools are going to be closed. We had a spring break in there. So our students were out of school from March 5th until we got back through the pandemic. It was an incredibly helpless feeling to be in a situation that nobody had been in. It was really difficult to turn to anyone because it was new to all of us, unless you were around in 1919, but let alone through a teacher strike. Incredibly challenging. So that's the second thing. The third thing that happened during this 90-day period is we had a newly elected board member, I don't know, about a year and a half previous. Her name is Marnie Zhang. And Marnie was a young woman, all but 31 years old. She was a proud St. Paulite, and she actually worked in Minneapolis public schools, but she lived and served on the board in St. Paul public schools. And I wish I could talk more about her other than to say she was a powerhouse. Very determined, so smart and intuitive, and really one of the finest board members I've ever had the privilege to serve for. And she and her father, during COVID, this is on into March now, weren't feeling well, and went into the doctor, and both were sent to the emergency room and eventually put on ventilators. They both had severe COVID. Her elderly father ended up walking out of the hospital, surviving. And sadly, in June, Marnie passed away. She had been on that ventilator since May, and she passed away on June 7th from COVID. Again, and we're at the stage, Tim, keep this in mind. Everybody's talking about, are we coming back to school? Are we going to be in person? Are we going to allow sports to play? All that stuff. And you have a public figure, 31 years old, who represents the district, dies from COVID. I mean, it just sent waves through the community that, again, became so much part of leading that organization through that time, is that the fear of death wasn't just something that could happen. People could visibly see that it was happening. And Marnie wasn't the only one, sadly, on our staff who died of COVID during that really terrible time.
31 years old and so much to give.
Yeah, just amazing. I've been, happy to share her story, and actually part of a chapter in a book that a superintendent colleague wrote about the pandemic, where I could share our story too. So it's I think I'll forever be committed to trying to honor her legacy of being a strong equity leader and somebody who really stood up for what she believed in, something that we all should. But incredible person and family. That was June 7th. So Marnie had been on that ventilator since May, so it was touch and go and not looking good, through that whole time. But on May 25th, May 24th, actually, I think it was a Sunday night, if I remember, before Memorial Day. I remember before going to bed, I saw a video online about something that was happening in Minneapolis. A video was being shown of a person being arrested, and a very physical arrest. Details were very scattered at the time. And, this is, for me, it was later at night. So I watched it and I didn't quite know what was going on. Then I went to bed. Well, I wake up the next day and my phone was filled. Of course, my video feeds, social media feeds were filled. And this would forever become an international event with the murder of George Floyd. 38th in Chicago was 9 miles from my house where it took place in Minneapolis. And I called or texted our chief of staff, an African-American, great colleague, Chief Baker, and both of us watched that together and just absolutely sank with what we saw, what we were learning. And I think just as important, what were we going to do? I've got a community of 33,000 students, 6,000 staff, tens of thousands of parents and community partners. And they, through hard times, look for the public schools to be a place of strength, a place of community, a place of coming together, and a place of getting through some really difficult things, like we were, through the pandemic, the early stages of, through the teacher strike, as hard as that was. There is a tomorrow, and you've got to prepare for that. But this was different. We were virtual. And one thing that I know about emotion is that people need many different ways to express it, whether it's in person, whether it's in a small group, whether it's individually, and couldn't do that. Zoom was fine to connect, but it was not the most effective way for our community to gather with what they had just witnessed. And I'll share that St. Paul especially had a re-traumatized, because in 2016, Philando Castile, who was a nutrition services worker in St. Paul, was shot and killed by a police officer in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, which is really just a township just outside of St. Paul. So this was, when the murder of George Floyd was on video and being shown around the world, it had deeply personal meanings on two fronts: proximity, just a few miles from St. Paul, but also because of what happened in 2016 to Philando Castile.
90 days that would do a couple things to people. Shut down, and I'm not going to do this anymore. It's too insurmountable. But I think what you have gone through, and this has kind of happened on the sort of the back end of your career, where you've had plenty of experiences working with, unfortunately, probably not any situations like a pandemic or strike, a murder of a community member. But somewhere along the line, you've learned some things that could help you get through all of that. And it sounds like you leaned on people that you've delegated authority to underneath you and helped you get through this. Was there a point after that 90-day stretch where you said, or you thought to yourself, there's going to be some scars, but there's still a little damage control, but I think we've made it kind of back through that? Was there a point?
Yeah, I think it's all still kind of a blur. Really, I'm thinking about responding to that. There were definitely stages. I mean, I was reminded this week, how sometimes your social media apps or your photo apps give you reminders each year of a look in the past. I've shown a picture on my screen of July 30th, 2020, when I held a press conference at an elementary school a couple blocks from my house during the pandemic to announce to the community that we were starting the school year in virtual learning. And it was a really difficult decision, but there was no way that a district our size and complexity was going to be able to safely organize to start in-person school, to start the school year. And again, Tim, there's not like a You don't wake up and get an email to say things to do today. These are things that you have to trust the information around you. You have to trust yourself as a leader. You have to communicate with those that are important decision makers. And you've got to make the best decision possible. Also understanding that decision is going to be incredibly unpopular. In fact, it's not even very likely, it's 100% likely that you're not going to please everyone and you're going to create some real animosity by decisions that you make. That's called leadership. And, I think as we made our way through the pandemic and, got some early vaccinations and started to slowly bring students back, by the end of that school year, 2021, we had just about all of our students who chose to at the time have the ability to come back to in-person learning. And that for us just built then to start the 21-22 school year, of course, as normal as possible. So I would say the summer of 2021 was probably the first time that, I don't want to say I took a breath, but I could sense that things appear to be a little bit more normal.
I would have to agree with you that we kind of went through the same thing of getting kids back in and yeah, it's a discussion for another time, but yeah, that's when I about started to feel a little bit back to normal. And so tell us what it's like now. Give us the 1 to 2 minutes of what it's like now for Dr. Joe Gothard.
We're also, rebuilding a strategic plan, so that we have a mission and vision and guiding principles that this community begin to understand. And it takes me back to, the fields at LaFollette High School, where the very first day meeting with students and parents, student athletes and parents, I didn't talk about football plays or positions or anything like that. We talked about culture. What do we believe in? How are we going to be good teammates? How are we going to represent this school? And how are we going to do this work together? And, to me, that's an exciting part of the work that I get to do. It brings me incredible joy to bring people together and to both recognize difference, but to also embrace it. I think that's really important. We're not a monolith. We're an incredibly diverse community, and understanding how to manage the dynamics of difference is a really important leadership tool that I try to embody and embrace. Beyond that, Tim, this, growing up nearby and now living here for many years. Growing up, East Town and West Town used to be kind of the city borders. There really wasn't much development beyond. Today, Madison is growing and thriving. There's expected to be 100,000 more people to live in Madison in the next 25 years, which doubles the rate from 1970 to 2020. Over that 50 years, it grew by 100,000. Now we're going to have that same growth, but in 25 years, not 50. So for me, I want to get MMSD in a position, in the community in a position where we can be part of growth and not reacting to growth. So we're underway with an operations, a long-term operations plan called Building for the Future, where we're going to begin studying our boundaries, studying where our students are going to school, studying our capacity and utilization in our buildings, and most importantly, aligning our school opportunities and choices with the demands and desires of our community members, families, and students, and both those that are here, and I think just as importantly, those that want to be here, in making Madison a destination choice for their children's education.
Man, there's that. I just wrote down a quote that you said is being a part of that growth and being able to see it. You're already projecting. Well, it's probably not just you, but along with other community and city leaders, that Madison could be nearly double what it is now in 25 years versus reacting to it and putting MMSD in a place that will always be changing with the evolution of the community and how things change and how things grow, and you're going to be on the front end of that change, and hopefully you and I are both around in 25 years to be able to say, hey, we talked about this on the podcast and it happened, and I'm proud to say that we didn't react to anything. We just moved along and shaped our school district and into one of the better school districts in the country. this is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, and pencils, and they're going to jot some things down. Here are Dr. Joe Gothard's 5 suggestions that have allowed him to survive over 3 decades in public education. Here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in softball style. Can you hit a softball, Joe?
You got it.
You got it. Okay, I'm going to have you hit these in about 60 seconds. And if you go over, great. If you go a little less, awesome. But number 1, become a student of yourself. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, there's 2 ways that you can really go through life. You can react to the things others tell you about yourself, but you come to realize that there are many conversations people don't have with you about things that you need to know about yourself. You need to study yourself. I keep an active journal. I read interviews and things that I've done to try to understand how did I sound. I rehearse things. I make sure that the team around me knows who I am, so that we can, put our best foot forward when it comes to working with our community. And I think if you're not a great student of yourself, you have the risk of allowing your identity to be shaped by others.
Number 2, don't do your work alone. Go ahead and hit that.
I think from Lombardi to about 10,000 other coaches, there's no I in team. You have to build a strong team. And I think one of the essential aspects of that is building norms of collaboration. What is acceptable for you in working together as a team, and what is unacceptable, and defining that and making sure that you hold yourselves to be accountable for that. But most importantly, I look for every edge I can in coaching, building, and motivating members of my team, sometimes the team as a whole, and certainly individuals at times as well. And I think back to the many leaders over the years who have taken time to do this for me and with me. And it's just something I'm committed to giving back to and hopefully making a difference in the leadership lives of others.
Number 3, tune out the noise. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, I've literally tuned out the noise during some of the teacher negotiations and situations earlier in my career that I talked about. I was an early Twitter user, I think 2011. But I just realized that the way that people were messaging me and weaponizing that account during some of those difficult times was not good for my mental health, not good at all. And so I just decided to stop doing that. I think tuning out the noise means that that you have an awareness of how people are reacting to matters at hand or your leadership, but it doesn't mean that you have to obsessively read every single thing about decisions that are made, and certainly about those who dissent with the decisions that you've made.
Number 4, make time in your schedule for yourself and your loved ones. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to say it's so much regrets, but as a head coach and a teacher and somebody working in graduate school at the same time, I started having children. I can't go back and redo that time, but I know for a fact that I didn't have the kind of balance that was really healthy that I see so many people struggling with today. I mean, Tim, you and I both had probably coaches that were 3-sport coaches that, coached all 3 seasons, and I could see how that could have easily become my reality. So I've tried to, over the years, develop more time for myself, whether it's, to exercise and work out, to just have some quiet time. People close to me know I'm a morning person, and that morning time, that ritual is really important for me, just to have that time. And I think everybody has to find that in their daily life, and it can be difficult, but I also think it's essential. I don't think you'll get your best self unless you're really prioritizing that time both for yourself and certainly with those around you, your loved ones.
And number 5 is kind of a first time here, but I think it's important, and you're going to tell us why it's important. Study first names. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, it's, superpower might be calling it wrong, but I'm amazed at how many times I can retrieve a name And you can tell by the way someone's face lights up or their body language that they are so honored that you said their name or remembered it. And some of my friends joke at me, and it's just something that I have. I may not have been a good student at 17 years old, but names are important to me and always have been. And then add to it, I get to, St. Paul, and just such a diverse, culturally diverse community. The pronunciation of names there can be really challenging because they're names that I'd never heard or said, or dialects that I wasn't aware of. So I learned how to embrace not knowing how to say to make sure that I learned how to say it correctly. And you don't have to be fluent in a language to be fluent in honoring somebody's first name. And to me, if you can get really good at that and make this part of your, daily ongoing routine, I think you'll see the results in it are going to be relationships that are stronger and a different feeling that people have when you're part of their life or part of the work you're doing together.
Something that doesn't cost anything, a little bit of hard work, but it doesn't cost anything, and it pays dividends as a coworker, boss, or in your case, the superintendent of the school district. What an episode. I'm so glad and really honored that you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your story and where you started and where you are now is inspiring. Your story reminds us all to have coping skills or mental health tools in the toolbox when a person is met with the challenges of leading school districts and really just at life in general. And despite that, you have survived and are thriving. And I wish you all the best in your work with the MMSD. Our call to action, Dr. Joe Gothard just shared his story about how he has navigated over 30 years of public education from teacher, coach to superintendent. Here are Dr. Joe Gothard's 5 suggestions that helped him survive and thrive during this time. Number 1, become a student of self. Number 2, don't do your work alone. Number 3, tune out the noise. Number 4, make time in your schedule for yourself and your loved ones. And number 5, study first names. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts, Dr. Joe Gothard?
Well, Tim, first, I just want to thank you and tell you how proud I am of you for taking on this podcast and dedicating your life to sharing your story and allowing others to share theirs. I've gained a better friend today, and just really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Public education's at a really difficult place right now with lots of changes at the federal level with state funding that has been inadequate for decades. And I'm just proud to be able to be in a position where I can help and impact others and do so in a community that raised me and refused to give up on me.
Yeah, so inspiring. And yes, thank you for the kind words and just trying to help the greater community and the rest of the world, hopefully more than one person at a time, hopefully handfuls of people at a time. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through. And with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive.